everyone, to Bauer's House Podcast, episode 10. And today's guest is a voice actress and filmmaker who has voiced Bowser Jr. and various voices in the Backyard video game sports series. You can also see her in award winning short films like Radiohead and Typhoid Mary. Please welcome Dolores Rogers. Dolores, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Alex. It's an honor and a pleasure, and thank you.
This is yet another special episode for me. My last guest was Rebecca Downs, who's also a voice actress and singer, and she did voice work for a game that I grew up playing, which was Warcraft. And the funny thing was, when I found out that you did the voices for the Backyard games, I was just I was amazed because that was such a childhood game for me. And as you heard on the episode with my brothers, they knew those games very well too. And you had various voice roles for those games too, which was an interesting thing.
Yeah, I loved working with Humongous. I'd go in and I was scheduled to record, certain voices, but then they'd be like, well, can you do this? And can you do that? And, this is, a girl who talks super fast. And I'm like, sure, And so I don't even know all of the voices that I did. I mean, the voices that I have on my resume are the ones that I know I did, but I'm sure I did others.
Yeah, because you even did like real athletes' voices too.
Yeah. I did Derek Jeter. And
Barry Sanders was one too.
Yeah, and Alex Rodriguez.
Yeah,
but it's funny because I don't know a lot about sports, and so they would tell me like, oh, this, he just hit the ball out of the field. He's really excited, or whatever. I'm like, okay, but so they'd give me a lot of great direction and info behind the words.
Yeah. How did you get the role with Humongous?
Gee whiz. It was an audition. I had auditioned, I think, for, they come across, you had audition for as many as you can, as many as were available for you to audition for. And I think I initially got Vinny the Gooch, and then when I was in the recording studio, they would say, can we hear this sound from you, or this sound? And so I really got to share and display, a wide variety of voices. And then
Right.
It was just kind of like, okay, we want her for this role and for this role and that role. And so, yeah. And they always gave me copies of the games, which I actually have right here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I didn't play the games because, as I'm not a really, I haven't played video games other than like Atari.
Oh, okay, yeah. Some really old school stuff.
Yeah, old school. But yeah, they gave me, I have so many of these, and I would give
Wow.
them, I gave the games to my nephews, and they played them and really enjoyed them. But it's nice. They gave me stickers and all the fun stuff that comes in, and so I've got the little memorabilia here.
That's so cool. Yeah, and the boxes are really nice too. Like they're like pretty sizable and everything. And also I've talked about this with voice actors before, and it's having the range to play all these different characters. That's the one thing I find so fascinating is look at how you were able to do like male voices, like, like we said, Barry Sanders and Derek Jeter, and it's funny because you're also playing them as kids, so it's like you have to really get your voice like super high pitched.
Yeah. Well, I think that comes from acting. I was really fortunate to play a wide range of theater roles. From Shakespeare to Neil Simon to slapstick, and doing all these characters, you would do different things with your voice. You really stretch your voice. I played the female version of The Odd Couple. I played Felix Unger, and she screamed and wailed and did all these sounds, and there'd be actors who'd be like, hey, you should try voiceover. And this is before I was doing voiceover. And then there'd be others who'd be like, oh, don't try it. It's too competitive. And I'm like, if you listen to the naysayers, you gotta just do it.
Yeah,
Like Nike says,
absolutely.
right?
Just do it.
Yep, you gotta try. Yeah. So
Es-
yeah.
Especially, if you do these video game roles, because it's like you really don't know the impact you're going to have on
No.
people,
Yeah.
like just look at us now. It's like this is like coming like full circle for me. It's like I'm a kid playing these games, I'm hearing your voice, as I play them, and then now I get to speak with you, which is
Well,
such an amazing thing.
it's an amazing thing I get to speak with you. I mean, it really is an honor to know that the voices I did touched people and that they enjoyed them and like Jeff Steitzer said. I watched that wonderful interview and we go into the studio and we record and there's the producer and there's like three people, the two or three people there with you. And so it's not like theater where you are in front of an audience and they give you applause at the end or they laugh at something you say or cry. It's very solitary, really. And so it's really neat to see that it went out there into the world. And yeah.
Yeah, it's like an after the fact thing. It's like you
Yeah.
do the performance, and then after you'll get these these random moments where people will say, your voice work was awesome,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
especially with your work with Nintendo. I mean, Bowser Jr. That's a huge role. I mean, especially in these big video games like Super Mario Sunshine is a massive game, which they actually recently remastered
Hmm.
so that either new players can play it for the first time, or people like myself who enjoyed playing them years ago get to revisit
Oh wow.
the game again. Um, and what was that role like? And also, how did you get that role with Nintendo?
Gee. So that again, that was an audition at the agent's office. It was a lot of fun. It was basically like choreography when I went in there because I was doing all the sounds while I was watching the video. Which usually, you're usually just reading the copy. So it took voiceover always takes for me. I'm really quick to record, but it takes a lot of focus and a lot of energy. And if you're recording only for an hour or 2 hours, you, I'm exhausted at the end.
Right.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, as far as I know about that role, I recorded for 3 games, and then they have those voices that they can use again and again. They own those voices, and so they use them in various games. So it's a compliment that they're still using my voice, or still using the voices that I recorded rather, after all this time in new games. Yeah. So.
Yeah, because it's not like Bowser Jr. is a one and done character.
Yeah.
That's like a mainstay character
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
in like their racing games, their sports games, everything.
Yeah.
So naturally, I guess they're gonna repurpose that, and but I gotta say I was surprised. Shame on you, Nintendo. They misspelled your name in the credits for Super Mario Sunshine. They spelled it Dolores
Yeah,
Rogers
that's so
instead of
funny.
Dolores.
I don't know, and I've seen that again on my Internet Movie Database page. Like it does say that, and I don't know where that comes from. I think my spelling's pretty decent, so.
Yeah, it can't be you. It can't be you. And did you ever get to work with Charles Martinet, who was the voice of Mario?
Well, we were in the studio at the same time, and this is back before you could just click anywhere and find anybody or anything and know exactly who that person is and what they do, right? And so
Yeah.
I was leaving the studio one day, and this nice man says to me, "I just love it when Bowser Jr. says, blah 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 blah." And I said, "Wow, you've got an excellent memory. And he says, well, I'm Mario. You know,
Oh my
and I'm
gosh.
like, oh, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Mario.
Yeah. Or he said like I voiced Mario, you know, but he had that very gentle, you know, lilting voice, and now I, you know, of course, yeah, I know who he is, but yeah, so I worked with him, um, and Jen Taylor and I. Oh, that was back in. I know I'm getting. We go back to Humongous, but she and I were Vinny the Gooch and Sunny Day for backyard baseball. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And now Jen is going to be in the Halo TV series.
very cool.
Uh, yeah, that's a massive role, and Jeff and I were talking about her and how talented she
Oh,
is,
she
and
is. Yeah.
that's awesome that you got to be you got to do voice roles with her because she was also Princess Peach,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course.
right.
So
That's where I was going with that. Right. Yeah, Princess Peach. Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
And the other thing I wanted to point out, Dolores, is you come from a family of creatives, and uh, much like my last guest, Rebecca Downs, she was also telling me the same thing. Family of creatives, and I'm thinking, man, I'm jealous of both of you. Like you guys, like you guys have all this great support for a creative career and a creative life, and I just think that that's awesome.
yeah. I was very very fortunate. My family was always supportive, and we are a family of painters. I'm not a painter myself. I draw simple comics, and but my my grandfather was an artist who went to school with Walt Disney. They took night classes together, and Walt Disney asked him to move to LA with him.
Oh wow.
And my grandfather decided instead to move to Oregon, and he became an artist for the newspaper there. For he did movie posters. I mean, just amazing works. And then on my other side of my family, my great uncle was also an artist, and his art can be seen during the WPA. He was an artist, and his art can be seen well, in museums, but also in San Francisco. He did murals, and there's a mural in a post office there. But just amazing, like kind of Diego Rivera art that he did. He was just incredible. Um,
Wow.
and then my siblings are artists. My sister is an artist. My husband is an artist, um, and he's an oil painter and pastel. And I don't have the patience for. You have to have patience for oil painting. I mean, it is.
Oh, absolutely.
It's something that I like to just draw, but yeah. So
Oil painting's a beautiful
oh, it
medium.
really
It's
is.
so
It
nice.
really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so all that hard work really does pay
Oh, it
off
sure
for
does.
sure.
Yeah.
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 And when you were growing up, you took drama classes, is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been acting since I was a little kid, and then um, when I was when I think I got involved in the school talent show when I was like 8 years old, and they had a you write your own scenes, which I love to write, and so that's when I really started writing. And this is way before your time, but there was this commercial with "Don't squeeze the Charmin, ladies, please don't squeeze the Charmin," and Charmin toilet paper, and his
Yeah.
name was Mr. Whipple. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. But anyways, I rewrote it and I played Mr. Whipple. And I was like, "Ladies, please don't squeeze the northern soft bathroom tissue." And I just thought it was the funniest thing. It's like, anyway. So, but yeah, I went on and I was so fortunate to have drama in public school, all through school. I took drama and art, and um, I was in plays in junior high, and then high school, and then um, I was in conservatories, which I would audition for every summer in during through after high school. So I got into several conservatories, focused on a lot of Shakespeare, um, and then um, yeah, went to San Jose State and did one play there. Um, and yeah, and for that play, I got an award, and I got to compete in the Irene Ryan College Festival down in Santa Barbara. Um, so yeah, it was a
Was that award the Hal Todd Award?
no. Well, they were so I didn't get the Irene Ryan, but I was nominated for it. So that was a separate thing. I got the Hal Todd Award was at San Jose State, and that was for Best Supporting Actress. I think they called it actress at that time. Now it's actor. Um, for The Crucible, uh, and I played Mary Warren in that. And so, I had no idea at the time that Hal Todd. So I had. It was a privilege to work with him. He was a wonderful director, and when I when I was working with him, he said, "Where have you been all this time?" And I just I hadn't been doing theater for a while, and I didn't audition for any plays there. And then I found out, he had directed up here at the Seattle Rep, and I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know his backgrounds before you could look people up, and find out their info. But yeah, that was neat.
That's great. Did all the drama classes and the theater work that you did growing up, did that ultimately prepare you well for like the big roles like The Crucible?
I think it did. For me, the learning has always been in the doing. You can study, but until you are actually learning that role and becoming that role and performing that role, um, yeah. For me, I had a lot of great roles here in Seattle, and I I was always the last to learn my lines. I just have a mental block about it. I played lead roles in almost every production, but I was last to learn my lines just because I had this block about it. But I'd always have them down on opening night,
Right.
because you have to.
Yeah, there's no choice. It's like once the show gets started, there's no blanking out, there's no forgetting.
Out. Yeah.
Oh man, that would just that would I gotta be honest would get to me. It's like I have moments, even sometimes when I'm doing this podcast, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going blank on what I want to ask next, and I can't imagine doing that in front of a live audience, even if it's something you've rehearsed over and over. There's still that feeling of I have to nail this.
Yeah, well, that's why scripts are it's so great to have a script,
right,
exactly. To have a script to memorize. I had a time when I was volunteered on PBS, and it was basically you were looking at yourself and talking to a blank screen, and so I had these 2 monologues memorized about why it's so great to contribute to PBS and all the wonderful things they do. And then one of the other actors left, and so they're like, "We need you to fill this spot." And I was just like repeating myself, and so then they like panned to the people answering the phones. But yeah. I think I get more nervous for in an audition because you don't know whether you have it or not, but when you're performing, right. You have it, you've got it, and you're doing it.
That's a good point. I've never really looked at it like that. It's like, all right, you have the role, and you're doing it confidently because you've rehearsed it. Whether it's voice acting, stage acting, or acting in film, what are your feelings leading up to each performance? Because I know there's got to be some big differences whether you're entering a booth that's isolated versus a wide audience,
mm-hmm.
or a camera and someone saying,
That's a great question. Um, for 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 voiceover, I try to get as much information as I can, but oftentimes that just comes right then and there when you're in the booth.
Right.
Um, and so you just create whatever you want to create for that character. You generally have an idea, especially when you have auditioned and they give you a little write up of the character or something like that, right? But that's what you're going off of. For theater, when you have time to put into it, you can definitely delve into the role. But as Jeff Seitzer said the other day, you don't veer off the script for theater. There's a reason
Right.
why those words were written, and so you need to find what's behind those words, right? Um,
Yeah.
and for film, it's what can be seen and heard. Um, we don't talk about why we're doing something, or like in Shakespeare, now I hand you my dagger, because they didn't have stage
Yeah.
direction so much, so, oh, okay, it's time to take the dagger. But for film, you can, I mean, it can be, it's all cut up too. Like when I did my films, it was, I did the scenes all in order because pretty much, well, for Typhoid Mary, just because they were short, and it was an easy way to film, uh, you know, consecutively, just, the first scene, then the second scene, then third and fourth. But for Radiohead, it was, broken up different times. We filmed different things. So for me, just trying to always take some time before you go on camera, absolutely, and get into that character's head.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's like you had mentioned earlier, too. You need to practice these
Yeah.
things. You need to experience it to really know. Uh, because you can go over these lines all you want, but ultimately, when you're in front of a camera or you're in front of an audience or in a
Mm-hmm.
booth, all those situations, that's when it
Yeah.
becomes real, and that's where you have to, ultimately rely on your
Yeah.
skill.
I mean, for me, and I think for many actors, acting is being. It isn't pretending. And I have heard other actors say, "Well, I'm just pretending. It's all pretend. It's just a fun job that we get to pretend in," and that's cool. That's cool if that's what works for them. But for me, it is being. Like, I am that character. I am that cartoon. I am whatever role I am given. I am going to be that role. You know, I'm not going to
Right.
question it. I'm going to be it. You know, yeah.
That's great that you point that out, because I feel like a good example of that was like Heath Ledger as the
Mm-hmm.
Joker. Because I was watching The Dark Knight the other
Mm-hmm.
day, and I was thinking, man, that is someone who
Oh
became
yeah.
that
Oh, he was
role.
excellent. Yeah.
And even I've heard Jack Nicholson had warned him and said, this is a very powerful
Mm-hmm.
role, being the Joker, where it's almost like you really do become a whole nother
Mm-hmm.
person, and such a powerful personality like
Mm-hmm.
that, like the Joker, like a sinister villain. It's like you really do have to
Yeah.
become that person to really sell that
Well, and I
character.
think also to develop your understanding of people, to observe, to understand, you know, all of the ranges of human emotion that you can, whether you've experienced it or not, to understand it.
Mm,
Um,
right.
so then you could play, you know, be a certain character. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And you mentioned
Yeah.
Radiohead, one of the short films here, and I just want to give a quick spoiler alert, because I really want to talk about the little details of it, because I really
Great.
enjoyed it. And the main character,
Yeah.
Charles, so he's hearing these
Mm.
noises
Yeah.
in his head, and it's like a musical
Yes.
syndrome. And I really did not know a lot about this, and it's actually a
It
real
is a real
thing.
thing. Yeah, yeah. Um, so musical ear syndrome, people can hear different things, noises, music, um, and the director Davi wanted to make a film about a man who has this condition, and I was like, I'll write it. you know, I'll write it because I want to do a film. I've been in a number of independent films, a lot of independent films that they were never produced. I mean, so many roles that aren't on my resume that were never they were never completed for whatever reason. But
Yeah.
we got this done, and um, yeah. So Charles would hear these noises, and it was really whenever he was having uh, difficult situations in his life, and I wanted to what I wanted to add to this film was that everyone has problems, everyone has issues, and the only way the only way to get out of yourself is to help others. And so
Right.
I really hope that was shown in the film. That was my goal.
And that was made apparent by the ending. Clearly, he's approaching you. You're playing the role of a
Yeah,
homeless woman. And even though he just got let go from
yeah.
his job, he remembered you from
Mm,
earlier
mm-hmm.
on, and took the time to help you. And that was I found that to be
Oh,
so great. you
yeah,
know and that really sold that positive message of no matter what you have going on in life, it's always good to um, be that person for
yeah,
someone else, to help
yeah.
someone out.
And I have a neat little story if I can share with you about that.
It's funny, I actually have a feeling I know what this is, but I'll let you go
Okay.
right
Well,
ahead.
there two things happened while I was uh, in wearing these clothes and in makeup, and so Davi, the sound and the director, they were over the side, and I was on this sidewalk, and I was getting my area ready. I had my army blanket, and I'm just dressed in tatters and all dirty, and a young man came up to me and said, "I don't have any money, but would you like? I have this leftover food." So he offered
Oh,
me
wow.
his food, and I said, "You are very kind. I am an actor, and this is makeup." You know,
What was that person's
he's like, "You're
reaction?
kidding? What movie are you doing? Hey, can we get a picture?" I'm like, "Sure."
Oh, wow.
But
How
yeah,
funny.
it was just very heartwarming. It really was, and there's unfortunately it's a very sad state of affairs all over. The homeless situation, and so I wanted to bring light to that too. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. And it's funny because I came across your social media post
Mm.
talking about that, but I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I want to wait until the show to bring this up with Dolores because this is such a funny
Mm.
story. And clearly it shows your acting skills were
I
top
wasn't even
notch there
acting yet, though.
because he was
I was
convinced.
getting into the moment, though. I was getting into the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Another little story from that the same film. Right after that, we got on a bus to go back to pick up our all our stuff from the film, because we were downtown on the sidewalk. So we pick up, get our stuff together. We take the bus to go get all our stuff to close up for the evening. And when I was on the bus, it was something else how people reacted to me. I mean, I was carrying a
Really?
black garbage bag full of blankets, blankets, and and just in tatters, and dirt on my face, dirt on my hands. And I was just like looking around, and people would avert their eyes. I mean, and it's true. Like the whole
Wow.
thing, like just say hello to someone. Experiencing homelessness, and I was just amazed at how invisible I was. You know.
Yeah. It was like a
Yes, it
social
was.
experiment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Wow. Yeah. It must have felt odd in a sense too, because it's like, obviously you're not really homeless, and it's like you're experiencing what
yeah,
that's
yeah,
actually like, for people to be like, oh, like I don't want to even
yeah.
make
There,
eye
but for the
contact,
grace of God, go. It's just I don't think no one's better than anyone else, and just the attitude was it was strange. Yeah.
Yeah. it's it's interesting because usually when I watch movies, whether it's a short film, whether it's long form content, I always try to find the meaning in
Mm.
everything. And this is like the thing that I love about directors is sometimes they like to put a lot of symbolism
Mm-hmm.
in their work, or they like to just have scenes that don't
Right.
have a meaning, and maybe they want the viewers to just sort of
You figure
make a
it out.
meaning
Yeah.
out of it. Yeah,
Hmm.
you figure it out, and if I have difficulty figuring it out for myself, right away I'll type the name of a movie, and then after that I'll put
Uh
Reddit
huh.
in a Google search, because I'll go right to reddit.com, where people have analyzed
Yeah.
all these scenes, and then you get to have their
Hmm.
take on it and everything. But when I'm watching Radiohead, I'm I'm seeing that scene in the library where Charles notices
Hmm.
that girl, and I'm thinking, is he hearing these noises because of maybe he had bad relationships in the past, and that sort of was
Hmm.
symbolizing that? And maybe that was me
Mm.
overthinking that scene. But I'm wondering, I'm like, why was that scene even there? Like, what was
Yeah.
the purpose of
Hmm.
it?
Um, I can't tell you.
Yeah, it's tough, right? It's like I guess only truly the
Yes, right.
director will know,
Yeah,
but it's like,
I was the assistant director, and I did the casting, and yeah, I think it was a little glimmer of hope, like you know, my take on that was a little glimmer of hope that despite all of the stuff that's going on with him, oh, that girl noticed him, and gave him a little you know bit of sunshine or whatever.
that's a good way of looking at it too. Yeah, because he's got all this stuff
Yeah,
going wrong, and that at least was a little bit of like a
yeah,
positive
yeah.
moment there. Do you have any sort of like movie details when you're watching a film that you
Oh,
like, or
I need to watch more films. I think we mentioned earlier when I was on The Fugitive, and I got to work, say my line to my Kelty Williamson, and then I realized he was in Con Air, and I love Con Air, and I was thinking about, people might go, oh my God, you love Con Air. Well, I do, because because it's so unbelievable that it's believable, and the acting is so
right,
fine. Every actor in that film played their character, as as solidly. It was just like they were those characters, and even though like the whole thing the at the end, I don't know if everyone's seen it, but um, it's pretty wild. Well, so going back to Con Air, I'd say the little bunny that goes through the ringer. you know
right,
that was very
yeah.
symbolic, and then at the end he still has the little dirty bunny to give his kid.
And people have had ample time to see that movie, because that's a movie that they show even on TV all the time as like a rerun
I've got to say,
movie. But
whenever I've seen it, oh, whenever it's on, I watch it. I mean, I've probably watched it maybe 4 times, actually, maybe five. I don't know, over the years.
yeah,
Yeah, you know. Yeah.
I don't get why two people have thrown hate towards Nicolas Cage's acting for certain
Oh, I think he's
roles. I
fabulous.
think he really is great. There are
He is.
certain roles where
Hmm.
maybe people have interpreted his acting as like overacting, like with his facial expressions or anything like that. But
Mm.
if you
Yeah.
take even the recent movie he did, I believe it was called Pig. That one, he got a lot of recognition, like good recognition for.
Mm.
Uh,
Hmm.
it was almost like a John Wick style movie where someone's pet is kidnapped or even hurt,
Hmm.
and you see how much love he has for this animal and how much revenge he wants to get back for it. And but yeah, no, I think he's a great actor.
He is. He is one of my favorite actors. And as far as being over the top, I think he's over the top when called for. But I would say he's a very understated actor.
Yeah,
I love understated acting. It's so refined. I did watch Joe. I saw that, and that was excellent. You know, if you were to talk about favorite actors, he's absolutely one of my favorite actors, along with Marlon Brando, who
yeah,
is very understated uh, in my mind. But yeah, you know, also Jim Carrey. I've got to say, he has been typecast because he's so good at being over the top in his, you know, crazy characters and fun characters.
right.
But The Majestic, did you ever see that?
Man, you know, you're probably going to have a similar reaction to what I had when you told me you didn't see Forrest Gump.
Oh,
And
okay.
not and it wasn't like I took a like offense by it, because usually people, when you tell them like, "Oh, I haven't seen The Godfather," they go, I can't believe you've never seen that movie." For me, I was just like, "Oh, huh, she's never seen it." You know, but
Yeah.
that's like a similar like great
Hmm.
movie that I
Yeah.
haven't seen. And I really now, you know, now that you're mentioning it, I definitely want to take the time to watch it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I really thought Jim Carrey. He should have been nominated for an Academy Award. I thought, in my mind. I mean, he was so good, so believable. It was just a very sensitive, thoughtful role, and I think he did a wonderful job. And so many times, you know, people do get typecast into to certain, you know, characters, and that's another reason why, like, kudos to Nicolas Cage, because he's done a broad range of characters. To me, like, versatility is the hallmark of a great actor.
Right.
You know? Although there are those actors that we like to watch because they kind of play the same kind of character, and that's fun too.
Yeah.
But to me, yeah, versatility. Yeah.
You get all sorts of it too in Hollywood. Like there's one guy who's been typecasted as an actor that plays like a Mexican gangster named Hector. Literally in
Uh-huh.
his IMDb, it's Hector, 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 Hector for like every movie. So you get both ends of the spectrum there. You get that, and
Yeah.
then you could get someone like Jim Carrey who's played all these amazing roles.
Yeah.
And did you ever see Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
Yes.
That's another big Jim Carrey movie that a lot of people love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing that amazes me too is when actors can play a role where the character is suffering from some sort of disease or some sort of defect, where the actor can put themselves in that situation and
Mm.
accurately depict it. To me, that's
Mm-hmm.
just such a it's such an amazing talent to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Gary Oldman makes me think of,
yeah,
oh, yeah,
yeah,
when he
and
played Church.
yeah, Churchill, exactly. And I think of Christian Bale, where
Mm.
he's had roles where he's either had like a gut playing a character, or he's been extremely skinny, like in The
Yes.
Machinist.
Mm.
That is just
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable. Or even we were mentioning Dark Knight, he had to get really muscular for that role. So imagine
Mm.
he's got to be under like a probably a strict diet, a strict workout regimen.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Speaking of superheroes, I've just got to say, have you seen Daredevil?
Is that the Netflix show with
Netflix.
Charlie? What's his name?
Cox,
Charlie
Charlie
Cox.
Charlie Cox.
Yes. So I've seen only a few episodes of it, but I really want to finish the series because I found out recently that he's going to be the official Daredevil character across all future movies.
Well, that's great because he should be. I mean, he is a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
He's an English actor who plays an American blind lawyer by day and a good vigilante, by night,
Yeah.
while being sightless. But all of course, all of his other senses are heightened. And when you think about, like, he had to get in. Well, I don't know, but you have to learn martial arts. I know he has of course, I'm sure, someone doing a lot of that for him.
Right.
But I think he received some award from a blind organization for his, for what he has done for people without sight.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think I, that that show. I think that the acting is excellent in that show. And he's that's probably one of my favorite shows.
Wow.
it,
Yeah.
it can be a little violent, and so I sometimes kind of fast forward past those bits, but
Yeah.
yeah.
The first show that I came across with Charlie was Boardwalk Empire on HBO, where he plays the role of like an Irish uh, gangster, and
Mm.
he's working like just under the rank of Steve Buscemi,
Ah.
and I thought he was incredible in that show. And it's funny because we're talking about Irish accents now.
Yeah.
It's making me think of your role in Typhoid Mary.
Ah.
and,
Yeah.
and the research and the dedication that you did for that role was just great.
Yeah, I I started about 10 years ago. I started about 10 years ago, and just did a lot of research. Read all the books I could find on her, and then I Googled the accent, and up came this storyteller, wonderful teller Declan Ford in County Tyrone, Ireland, and he he has given me so much information about the background of the land there and the stories and the accent. I would send him, does this sound right? Because it wasn't just a standard Irish, the standard Irish accent like I just did. It was a very specific Northern Irish accent, um, and he gave me the yes, I did it correctly. So then I'm like, okay, he said it's okay, it's okay,
Right.
yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah. And to have that insight and like help in getting down that accent for that role is just is great.
yeah.
Shows your dedication there to for wanting like an accurate depiction of the character. So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and so I wrote a feature screenplay, and it's based on her life, and my goal was to humanize her. She never believed that she spread typhoid. She did, but
right.
at that time, the early 1900s, they're just finding out about germ theory, and so in my mind, I do believe to her dying day she did not believe that she caused sickness, but there were so many things that that come to light as I read about her. And she, as she was locked away on the island, she'd make necklaces and sell them on the island, and people would buy them. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. And one neat, I know we're almost wrapping up, but one really neat thing happened in my reading about her, and this is in the feature script. But she was friends. There was an Irishman who she was later allowed day privileges off the island into New York as long as she would come back. There were
Oh wow.
male healthy carriers that were, allowed their freedom, but she was not. Um, But so she would come back, and the gentleman who helped her on and off the island, I I may have the name wrong, but I'm thinking it was uh, Tom Ford
Hmm.
or John Ford. Anyways, there's a postcard in the beginning of the short film, and I wanted an authentic postcard of the Statue of Liberty from the early 1900s.
Yeah.
It was sent by a man of the same name.
Oh
It was,
wow.
yeah, 130 years later, is sent to, when I ordered it off of eBay, Tom Kane, that was the name, Tom Kane.
Okay.
Tom Kane, and it was spelled differently. But so her friend on the island was Tom Kane, and then I was sent this postcard by a Tom Kane in New York of the Statue of Liberty, and so it was just a
Wow.
weird coincidence.
That is weird. Yeah. I mean, hey, more accuracy for the short film right
That's right.
there.
That's right.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
And it's just so crazy to think about how there were mail carriers of
Yeah.
it at that time that did not get that same harsh treatment
Yeah.
of just being isolated.
Right, and there were some that were isolated for a little while, and then they're like, "Oh no, you're fine," or they would just lose track of them. I mean, it was rampant in it was rampant at the time. So that's why I can that's why I understand that why she didn't think she was the cause, even though she left after, like, she would take care of these households. There would be a typhoid outbreak and she'd leave. And my thinking is she'd left because she didn't want to get it. Now, she did take care of a child who had it and stayed after, And then, when she went to court, none of the families came to say, you did this or, So, yeah, it was rampant. And the male healthy carriers were allowed their freedom too because they were considered heads of household and they were the breadwinners, even
Right.
though she was a single woman alone on her own, but
Crazy. And it's like the fact that she was asymptomatic,
yeah,
that also is going to contribute to her thinking, what the heck, it's
right,
like how can I be causing any of this? That's what probably contributed to her denial.
exactly. Yeah, she was healthy. In fact, one of my lines was, I'm healthy as a horse, and I was told, no, it would be healthy as a trout. That's the
There
saying.
you go. Yeah.
Okay, change it. Yeah.
Exactly. And so you wrote, produced, directed, and acted in it.
Yeah, well, I was cheap. I initially wanted someone else to play the role, but they weren't available. And yeah, I mean, I love to write. Writing's it is one of my passions, and uh, I I think the person who directs and writes, they have a vision for it, obviously, and so I did. It turned out the way I wanted it to turn out. Um, it was filmed in one day without any funding, and then edited for, I don't know how long it took her, but it was all relatively pretty quick by the time
Right.
we started submitting it to film festivals. And it's pretty great because it filmed internationally now. It filmed in Ireland and screened in Ireland, rather, and screened in Canada, so it's international.
That's
And New
great.
Jersey. It screened in New Jersey and Ohio, Oregon, California, Washington. And then lately, just last December, it was part of Shockfest.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, so that was online screening, and they're, I think, headquartered in Las Vegas.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the more coverage, the better for it.
Yeah,
We got to get the word out there for people
yeah.
to see your incredible acting. You really sold that role so well. And how the what I'm trying to ask here also next is, like, if you're writing, producing, directing, and acting, you're doing multiple roles
Mm.
in for one project. How do you juggle all of those things for one project?
Well, the, the writing, you you get the writing out of the way, and then you have to you just have to be very, I guess, detailed and have a vision about this sequence of everything,
Yeah.
and have everyone's ears as to okay, quiet on the set, now we're doing this.
Right.
It was all very, it was serendipity. I mean, everything came together. As far as the acting, I really like playing silent roles. Like I've done so much theater, so much broad theater and that kind of thing, and Shakespeare, and I love the intimacy of silent roles, like silent films from the early part of the last century. So if you can convey if you can convey things without loudly expressing them, if you can be expressive, and act that way, I enjoy doing that, especially to kind of it's the exact opposite of doing voiceover, where it can be kind of loud and bombastic and crazy creatures and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
And then do these quiet, thoughtful type of characters. So
It's funny you mentioned the silent era, because imagine those actors, they had to be super expressive, obviously.
yeah,
And I find that so admirable, to be such a good actor where you don't even say anything. You're
right.
just being the role. And it makes me think of a comedian who once went on stage with the goal of not saying a joke and
Wow,
getting a laugh.
wow.
Where, how amazing is that? He wanted to rely on his facial expressions as a challenge to see if he would get a laugh, and he did.
He did.
And he ended up not just being up there, not saying a word, just sort of making faces, and the crowd ate it up.
Oh, that's
It's
awesome.
so that's, I draw parallels between those two things, because it's amazing when, as a creative, you can challenge yourself
Mm,
to push past the comfort zone like that,
yeah.
and just rely on your expression.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
And also, I was curious, Dolores, do you have a role that comes to mind that is like a favorite? Even if it was a theater role, like thinking of like everything you've done thus far.
Yeah, I have several. I played Lord Talbot in Henry VI, Part One, and it was very much like Braveheart. That's how my analogy is. It was this powerful, powerful character, and it was an all-female show. Um, we didn't really get any press, which was kind of a bummer, because it was, to me, one of the best things I've done. But I was really happy that those I loved and such were able to see it. So that, um, yeah, so many. What else? I did The Rainmaker. I was part of a theater group in Edmonds, Washington, and it was called Edge of the World Theater. And I did a
Yeah.
number of shows with them. And yeah, so the female version of The Odd Couple was one, and
Oh,
yeah, and then The Rainmaker, where I played Lizzie, who believed she was plain, and in her heart she was plain, and it was a very touching role. Um, as far as voiceover, there's Billy Bluehair is a favorite of mine. And they're educational videos, so they teach kids why things are the way they are, and I learn things too when I'm recording.
and that is, Billy Bluehair is like a YouTube channel
Yeah,
that, where it's almost interactive in a sense,
yeah.
right?
There's a whole bunch where like you could well, there's many videos, and then there are also videos where they say your child's name, so they'll send you a video, and Herbert, or Speaking
That's
of
so
Herbert,
cool.
if you talk about favorite roles, that's probably one of my favorite roles. In fact, I put a couple things aside here, but so this was when I was in my 20s, and I played Muriel in
Oh wow.
Muriel and Herbert and Muriel. You know, I can't hear you when the water's running, and that the dialogue. Oh, talk about excellent writing. I mean, it was back and forth, and they both can't remember who they are and what they did and who they were married to, and it was very funny. So, yeah,
That's
that's
great.
probably one of my favorite roles.
I wanted to close with this last question,
Mm.
Dolores. So, one thing I've noticed is on whether it's your reel that you have out there or like any sort of videos that show your work, people in the comments always seem to highlight you as Bowser Jr. I always see, is this the voice actress that did Bowser Jr.? There's so many people that love you for that role, and
Oh,
I'm wondering if Nintendo ever reached out to you to do new voice work for Bowser Jr. or even just another character, a whole new character. Would you do it?
oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Oh, and anything that brings joy to people, like Bowser Jr. Oh, absolutely. In fact, I have had people contact me and asking for an autograph or that type of thing, and um, it just if it brings joy to people, and it was a lot of fun, and yeah, absolutely. I also voiced Wiggler,
Yeah.
and it's funny because those are the sounds like I make those sounds all the time. Yeah, like when I'm scratching, my husband starts laughing. I'm like, oh, or whatever.
You were born for that role.
Well, I mean, these are just just sounds I make, and anyways. But yeah.
And it's funny because the character of Wiggler too is like, it's not like it's like a speaking role. It's like you're just making noises, it's like this little caterpillar looking thing
Yeah.
that I recall even from playing the Super Mario games from a kid seeing it and everything. But yeah, that's funny that they even had you voice that character too.
That was fun.
That's great. And well, Dolores, thank you so much for being on the show today. And do you have anything to plug or promote or anything you
Yeah.
have going on?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And you ask wonderful questions. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you. Um, I have a little something in the hopper with Mr. Scott Burns, and so
Who is, of course, the voice actor for
that's
Bowser?
right, and many others. Oh my goodness, what a range he has! What a
Yeah,
range! Yeah,
absolutely.
I suggest go look him up on YouTube. Amazing. Um, but yeah, so we're putting a little something together,
All right. That's
a
exciting.
little fun video, and it's going to be a new thing. So that's about all I can say about it.
Awesome. Well, Dolores, you're welcome back on the show
Thank
anytime.
you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much. And to the viewers or listeners, thank you so much for listening to or watching another episode of Bauer's House Podcast. Don't forget to rate and review the show. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you.
Thanks so
Bye
much.
now.